First of all, thank you all for coming. Most of all, I want to thank Larry Namer, who has so graciously brought Vinson Valley, part of the valley, to meet Eric Garcetti. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Eric is actually a fourth-generation Angelino, and he is Jewish. He is part Jewish, part Mexican, and all Angelino. He really does kind of represent Los Angeles, you know, in very, very diverse background. He was raised here in the San Fernando Valley, actually not too far from here. He studied urban planning and international relations at Columbia University. Went on to become a Rhodes Scholar and to continue his education at the London School of Economics. And at that point in Eric's life, he could have done anything. He could have started his own IPO, wrote a new derivative, been the head of Google. But Eric, at that point, made a really important decision. And that decision was to be of service. And I met him when he began this, when he ran for city council, CD 13. Eric would walk the streets of Hollywood, Echo Park, Silver Lake, Atwater, Thai Town, preaching Dostoevsky, going through several pairs of shoes. But the most important thing that Eric did when he was campaigning was he listened. He really took in what the community had to say, what their concerns were. And he turned that into a practical experience with bold new ideas. And as city council president, he led Los Angeles into a better direction onto a more sure-footed financial future. Eric won the New Frontier Award. And this award was given to him personally by Caroline Kennedy. And I think she sums up Eric the best when she said, Eric Garcetti represents the best of President Kennedy's vision of an innovative and idealistic America that moves forward to meet its challenges. Eric Garcetti. Yeah.
I guess after an introduction like that, I should just ask if there's any questions. But Robert, for your friendship and for your incredible contribution to this city. Larry, thank you for hosting us and for having us here. Robert and I met when I was first campaigning. He also was somebody who ran for city council and who I was so proud to be alongside. I think I gave all of my tables to him that he had helped me get. And when I think of the few people who have made more of an impact on people's lives in broad ways, in political ways, in social ways, and in spiritual ways, you're a remarkable human being and friend. And thank you for an amazing introduction, and thank you for kind of setting the table for everybody that's here. And can everybody hear me back there? I'll try to project. I'll use my theater voice. I know we have some great actors that are here, but I want to thank friends old and new that are here as well. Many of my campaign volunteers, and people who have voted really by their feet by being here, that you care about this city, that you care about this world around you, and you care about our future enough to take time out on what was one of the most beautiful days I can remember. Looking at the valley, I came through the Sepulveda Pass, and as was mentioned, I grew up here on Woodley Avenue, which is the street that divides the valley in half. It is a remarkable street. And the world that I came to know growing up here is replicated here around this pool. The diversity of this city, the kind of limitless horizon that never seems to hold us back, our ideas, the strength of our heart, the things that we want to do. This is a city where dreams truly come true. And it was right along the 101 freeway here that my family, when I was a young child, we used to tend a plot at a community garden. And you can still see it, it's just down the street. It's the community garden that runs parallel to here. And as we pulled carrots from the ground and as we talked to our neighbors, that was the LA that I knew, walking safely to Encino Little League and playing playing baseball, knowing my neighbors, seeing police officers out there. This was the safest and greatest place on the face of the earth. And part of the reason that I'm here still today and involved now in the civic life of seeing what is our next step as Angelenos is because the journey that I took here that started for me as a boy in Encino really began further back and was alluded to in the introduction by Robert, which was, I'm your average Angeleno in the sense that none of us are average. We went right around right now and each of you told me your stories about how you came here as immigrants or your parents and grandparents. None of us have a typical story. And it's such a different city because of that. For me, I have an Italian last name, but my father's side of the family fled war in Mexico during the Revolution and came here in the early 1910s. My great-grandfather was killed in that war in the same town where Pancho Villa was assassinated, called Hidalgo de Parral in Chihuahua. My great-grandmother carried my grandfather over the border in her hands when he was just 1 year old and settled here, where he met my grandmother, who was one of 19 children from the same Mexican-American parents. My mother's side of the family fled Russia in the early 1900s as well, and came directly to Los Angeles. A kind of very modest tailor my great-grandfather was, and both my Jewish and Mexican halves grew up in Boyle Heights, which predominantly is now Mexican, but you can still see all the Russian and Jewish roots there because you can get pastrami at all the taco stands along Cesar Chavez, which used to be Brooklyn Avenue. And there they grew up and they found this tremendous place, this fertile ground where, on one side of my family, my grandfather from Mexico was able to fight World War II. He earned his citizenship, came back here and was a barber, and had a barber shop down at Olympic in Vermont. And used to cut the hair of university professors at USC who would come there after work. And my father, who grew up in South Los Angeles and graduated from Washington High School, was the first in his family to go to college, and he got a scholarship to USC. And me, when I came back after grad school from living in New York and England, my first job was teaching at USC. This is the kind of city where I could literally be that professor who used to sit in my grandfather's barber chair. And on my mom's side, my grandfather, who took his father's tailoring business, he was a great musician too. He and my grandmother were both from LA, but they met in piano school and a music school, Eastman School of Music in Rochester. He came back and decided to get into the schmata business and as a clothes and started making men's suits, and was able to go so high that he became tailor to President Johnson a generation after his father had immigrated here from Russia. And it shows what this city has always been about. For me, the journey that I've taken was about how do I, with all the amazing gifts and the luck that I've had growing up here, what can I do to give back, and what can I do to bring back that Los Angeles that we know and love, to empower people, to make it feel like we are a city of great opportunity again, in a way that sometimes we feel we've lost. I lived in New York in the late 80s, early 90s, and in London in the mid-90s, when those cities were much more tired than Los Angeles is now. But some days here in Los Angeles we feel, will we ever solve the problems? Can we build enough housing? Can we bring the companies to provide jobs? Are we going to be able to have park space for people in good schools? Will we ever reduce traffic? And my answer is absolutely yes. And it doesn't just come from my aspirations and my hope, it comes from my experience. 11 years ago, as was mentioned, I bought myself a new pair of shoes and I walked every single day door to door. And it's funny here in Los Angeles because we're not used to a lot of walking, right? We're great drivers and other things. But when you arrive at someone's door and when they realize you're not trying to convert them and you're not trying to sell them anything and you don't want to paint the numbers on their curb, but you're actually just there to engage in a conversation about the future of their block and their street, of their neighborhood and of their city, this incredibly wonderful thing happens in which people start to tell you, yes, I do have ideas about this town. I've always wanted to see what we could do to make sure that park is built on an empty lot down the street. Or why can't our schools be better? And I'm sick of getting my business tagged with graffiti every other day and seeing young people get shot or seeing people graduate and have no jobs. We do the work in politics not when we do what I'm doing now, so I apologize, I'm not modeling behavior very well. It's not learning how to speak. The most important lesson in politics and in life is learning how to listen. To hear the voices around you, to give those voices some action to turn around neighborhoods. And when I was lucky enough to win as city council member in the 13th Council District, which is the smallest city council district, the most densely populated, it's the heart of the city, I took over neighborhoods that had become kind of almost hollow shells of what they had once been. Hollywood, my father and I used to go there to get our hair cut, but we'd go there, for a moment, drive straight back to the valley because it was dangerous, and there was prostitution on Sunset Boulevard, and there was drugs being sold openly on Yucca. When I took that area over 11 years ago, we had a study, and the average tourist had stayed just a few years early in Hollywood, our #1 tourist destination, for an average of 23 minutes. They go to the Chinese theater, they take a picture, they kind of stroll one block or the other and say, wait a second, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to go find Hollywood at Universal or Beverly Hills or someplace else. The work that we've done over the last decade has turned that neighborhood around. We've cut crime in Hollywood, get this, by 66% in 10 years. The city, which we built up, our police department, our partnerships with youth, we've reduced crime to the lowest level since Dwight Eisenhower was president. And we've done that because we haven't just had great police officers that understand that they should look like the community and come from the community, but because we've kept our parks open late at night for young people to have opportunities. We've made sure that there's mentoring opportunities as well, so that people don't join gangs but might have an internship or an opportunity to do something good in their community. We opened up empty storefronts and we invited nightlife back to Hollywood Boulevard. And lo and behold, we've just gotten these statistics. In Hollywood, we increased the economic output by 475% in one decade. The #1 neighborhood in California state, we think. And in doing so, we had jobs. We didn't push people out who are lower income. We built affordable housing to keep them there because they're the ones who helped turn it around. And it wouldn't be fair to push them out. We didn't want to turn into what, I know we have some folks from Venice and other places. My parents live in West LA. Our mistake west of the 405 freeway is that we have 4 jobs for every 1 unit of housing. And so that means that 3 people have to commute in and 3 people have to commute out every single day for those 4 jobs, which causes the traffic that makes it impossible to get from the ocean to the 405 any given day. In Hollywood, as we brought that area back, we put a subway in, we built affordable housing, so when a W hotel gets built, yes, we have movie stars who are moving into those condominiums, and it's great to see stars on Hollywood Boulevard, real live stars again. But we also have housekeepers who are doing the work at the W Hotel, living in the affordable housing right next door above the Trader Joe's, so they can commute to work and see their kids after school right next door instead of having to come from the Inland Empire or up in Santa Clarita. We need to replan this city and to see that our best days are ahead of us, but we can only do that when we listen to the city around us. When we take, as we did in my district, half of the kids went to school outside their own district, or outside their own neighborhood. And so when 50% of the kids commute to get to their school, and you wonder why gang membership is high, we have to build those schools, and we did. 12 new schools so that 100% of those kids now go to school inside their own neighborhood. And we took every single school and looked at them and said, what's missing? After school programs and music and arts programs. And we made sure that every single one, we were the first council district to ever do this, had an after school program. And in doing so, that helped us reduce crime. And we also learned in city government that we need to have the things that make life beautiful. Here we are in a beautiful backyard with this incredible weather. And for many years in LA, we didn't build parks because everybody had backyards. We didn't build schools because you could get on freeways where there was no traffic and commute 20 minutes any place. We didn't build a lot of the infrastructure that we needed. But it's time for us to do that. And in a district where I had 13 parks, we just opened up our 38th park. In about 10 years, we've tripled the number of parks in the park tourist part of the city. We could build 100 new parks in this city. I know what it was like to come down here and to play in this recreational basin here and how important that was to my development as a kid. Every young person deserves that opportunity. And we've made a lot of hard decisions in tough times when the economy's gone south. We have to figure out a way to bring businesses back to LA. I don't know how many of you read Steve Lopez, the columnist in the LA Times, but he doesn't suffer fools lightly. He doesn't say nice things about elected officials. I love reading him because he tells it like it is. And he was talking about how difficult it is to open a new restaurant in Los Angeles. And he told the story of a woman in my neighborhood where my wife and I used to live in Echo Park, where a woman named Genevieve came to us and wanted to open up a cupcake bakery. It was her lifelong dream. And the bakery was, I don't know, maybe a quarter the size of this backyard. And she came to me in tears, $40,000 in debt, maxed out on her credit cards. And she said, I really just had this dream, but the city seems intent on crushing me. They came to me and they said, okay, you want to open up a bakery? First thing you have to do is build underground parking. Second, you have to put in a grease trap that's $80,000 the size of a VW bug to capture all the oil and grease and fats. Well-intentioned, we don't want sewer spills. But she said, I'm only baking, I'm not frying anything. They said, sorry, the regulations say you have to do it. Well, bottom line is we got her through that red tape. We got it open, and many of us have enjoyed, Wendy and others, her great cupcakes and baked goods. And in Steve Lopez's column, he said that Garcetti and his office gave her small town help in a big city. That's what we have to get back to now. Thinking big about the future of our economy, making sure our kids can get those jobs in the green sector that are waiting for us, in the high-tech sector, so we can invite some of the people that have been up in the Silicon Valley and New York here to LA. 90% of the internet is going to be video traffic in the next 5 years, they say. And what better place to produce content than here in Los Angeles? And we should be graduating high school kids who are inventing the next Google and Twitter and Facebook right here in LA. Our port of Los Angeles, 45% of the goods that come into America come through our port, but it will require the sort of dynamic leadership that I hope to bring with this coalition of people to make sure that port stays on top. That we have an airport that we're not embarrassed to land in, that says LA the moment you get there. And Disney character can greet the kids, and we can have bands playing in the airport because it's the music capital of the world. And we can do things like we've been doing recently downtown and here in the valley and other places where we close down 10 miles of streets to bicyclists and pedestrians. 150,000 people came out to a festival we called Ciclavia earlier last year, in which people were playing street chess, and they were having street plays and doing yoga and dodgeball and bicycling and learning about Boyle Heights and learning about East Hollywood. We have the greatest canvas on the face of the earth. And I will end, as I used to, just because you mentioned it, with a Dostoevsky quote, because I know we have a good Russian crowd here, as well as folks who can understand when I get back to that ethic of what Steve Lopez was writing about that we've tried to do for the last decade. Dostoevsky, and I'm paraphrasing, said, it's easy to love humanity. The difficult work is learning to embrace your neighbor. And it's a perfect saying for Los Angeles, because we all say we want to have a better transit system, we want to have world peace, we want to have all the good things, but when it comes down to conversation between people who speak different languages or look different from us or who live in different parts of the neighborhood or businesses versus residents, we sometimes don't get to yes. We're a very good city at getting to know. If I told all of you something terrible is about to happen in your neighborhood tomorrow, something bad's going to be built there, come to the meeting to oppose it, I could get all of you tomorrow to come. But if I were to say, let us plan our future, let us be on offense instead of defense, let us find those things that will define us for the next generation. In the past, we'd only get 2 or 3 people that show up. So my campaign is a mission to stitch together a new fabric in this, each of you being the threads. A fabric strong enough to hold us up, a fabric strong enough to unite us, a fabric that can define who we are for the next 25 years. We've had an extraordinary opening to this campaign. There's great people in this campaign who I've worked closely with, who I have tremendous respect for. But I jumped into this campaign because we need LA not just to be good again, but great again. To have that buzz that other cities have. To have that enthusiasm that I grew up with. And I hope that you'll give me the honor of being that man. That new face of LA that will say, look, if we could do it to the heart of LA, which was in need of a triple bypass, and we did it, we can do it for all of LA. And we can make sure that neighbors meet neighbors, and that we connect with one another, and that we will be an inspiration to the world again, and that our best years are ahead of us. So with that, let the conversation begin. I invite you, if you want to have house parties, fundraisers, if you have a club that you're a part of that you want me to come to, I'm going to be everywhere in this campaign. We're going to win this race, and I'm going to be your next mayor, because I'm not just looking for a team to elect me mayor. I'm looking for a team that will govern this city for the next 10 years. Thank you for the opportunity.
Questions? Yes.
As a mayor, what kind of avenues of monetizing Los Angeles would you see other than fines, penalties, and taxes?
That is a great, great question. None of you have ever experienced this, I'm sure, because none of you have any tickets or fines or violations of any sort. But we have a culture right now in our city government that rewards our very good city employees for every fine that they find, every violation that they're able to find, every way that they can say no. Instead of a culture that says, we're going to judge employees by how many jobs they create, how many businesses they get going, and how quickly we steer through that red tape. We can monetize Los Angeles in a number of really powerful ways. One, we can have public-private partnerships that work for us. For instance, we have so many people who want to be a part of lifting up our schools, people who want to be part of lifting up our transportation infrastructure. And yet we make it so difficult for people to participate. For my birthday 4 or 5 years ago, I'm very proud of having built up an affordable housing trust fund because I saw a need for workforce housing. I saw this donut starting to happen in LA where The working class folks were kind of living in a donut around LA, causing traffic when they commuted in, but not able to live in the heart of the city anymore. And so we built up an affordable housing trust fund. And for my birthday, today's my birthday, by the way, so this was about
Good aquarium.
6 years ago, for my birthday, a lot of people had seen what I was doing and they wanted to donate a small amount to put into that housing trust fund. The city spent 6 months figuring out how we could accept private donations from people to help us build affordable housing. So one piece is making sure that we leverage those amazing organizations, nonprofits like yourself, that are out there to participate in turning around our schools and turning around our neighborhoods. Secondly, though, I think we can be a more aggressive partner with our businesses of the future in a positive way. Let me give you an example. One of the things I'd like to do in this city, we do have a lot of new high-tech companies that are coming here. The CEOs of these companies and founders of these companies have been strong supporters of my campaign. I've been having conversations with a lot of them, both in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, and here. And they said, we love it here. There's this thing called Silicon Beach that's emerging, kind of Santa Monica, Venice. I'd like to see a series of 12 or 15 incubators throughout the city of Los Angeles where we basically pay almost for free or for free the rent of new startups. We even assist them too with lawyers, accountants. And we say to them, we know that 50% of you probably will fail. Another third will be semi-successful. But 1 or 2 of you will be the next big thing. And in exchange for helping you get on your feet, right now, we'll give you all this for free. But if you become successful, we want 1/3 of that revenue stream. So that we could, in the city of Los Angeles, without going to taxes, and I'd like to abolish our city's business tax, which I think is a job killer in the city. And I've come to that from experience where I know people go to Glendale, Burbank, Santa Monica, and Culver City because we want to tax them, even when they lose money, we tax them. Let's figure out a positive way to be a part of that income stream, and through that then, we can open our libraries, we can pave our streets, we can do things. And I've talked to a number of entrepreneurs who said, we would love to do that. I've been using technology to tackle a number of problems. I'll take out my phone to show you. I was one of the first electeds in the country to develop an application. It's called Garcetti 311. If you live in my district, you can use it. When I'm mayor, we'll have this citywide. But you hit submit a report on this. I know not everybody can see it. And you basically take a picture. Not that he's a problem, but let's just say Robert was the problem. You take a picture. And then once you do that, there's a drop-down menu, and you say pothole or light that's out or a couch or whatever he is. And then you literally hit send. And instead of waiting on 311 and figuring out which department to talk to, instead of being on hold, it GPS codes exactly where we are so we know the location. And when we finish it, we email him back that it's done. There's another application we learned in Hollywood. Here's another way to kind of figure out good monetization. In Hollywood, Central Hollywood, we learned 30% of the traffic was caused by cars circling the block looking for a place to park. So I can build for you $40 million parking structure, which I am on Vine Street. It took us 7 years. It'll help in the neighborhood. But what we also did was we became the first neighborhood anywhere in the world. For $40,000 when we switched out our parking meters, we put a sensor on them so when a car leaves, it communicates with us, and we built out a Wi-Fi network that through an application called Parker, which you can download, can tell you in real time, like here's a map. There's 247 spaces right now in Central Hollywood. And if I zoom in, I can tell you right now on Hollywood Boulevard between Cherokee and Whitley on the south side, there's 4 spaces, and you can see how much they cost to park. So you can get to what you want to do, which is meet friends or see a play or a movie or go to the music store instead of circling the block, wondering when you're going to experience life. We have great partnerships of using the city as a canvas that would attract those companies in and give us services in tough times for a cheaper amount of money than what we have today. Yes, a lot of hands. I'm going to go from left to right. Sir.
No problem. Thanks,
No
guys.
problem.
Great as our next meeting.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
What is your vision for the future for energy? Alternatives, getting off the coal and GWP issues, that 40% of energy.
Thank you. Rob's question, if you couldn't hear, was what is my vision for energy for our future? And I just came from a group of environmental supporters who I've worked with really close to. And I'd have to say, of all the issues I've worked most on in my 10 years, it's probably the environment. From parks to water and air quality. I authored the Clean Water Bond, which has cleaned up the LA River, a $500 million bond. Thank you to everybody who voted for Prop O. It's cleaning up our water. Whether it's looking at our air quality or transportation. But our energy is really, I think, where the buck stops. And we have a great opportunity. I mean, I love LA and the potential opportunity to be your mayor because we own our airport, we own our port, and we own the largest municipally owned utility, publicly owned utility, you own it, in the country with the Department of Water and Power. In 2002, I was one of the first voices to ever say we should maybe get away from coal. And it was funny, back then we just had what was going to be a very procedural vote to re-buy our stake in a coal-burning plant in Arizona called Mojave. And the person who heads up the city council, kind of our chief legislative analyst, knew he had the votes and knew that we were going to continue burning coal. And I turned to Alex Padilla, who was a seatmate of mine at the time. I said, I think we should get away from coal. What do you think? He said, me too. And we said, well, let's talk to some of the other council members. Long story short, we got a majority vote, and that day, for the first time, we divested $1 billion stake in a dirty coal-burning plant to be able to say, let's put that in renewables. Long before people were talking about setting standards of 20 or 25%, we started that. We took that money and we put it into the largest municipally owned wind farm at Pine Tree, just north of here. We started buying solar power. We started giving rebates to people who put solar on their homes and their businesses. And now we're one of the best cities in the country in terms of the percentage. But we're still, like you said, about 40 to 50% coal burning. And just because it's not in our backyard doesn't mean that it's not really important. As mayor, I will wean us off of coal completely. I think it's going to be a combination of our sustainables. We have right now the ability to do 5 gigawatts just on our rooftops of solar right here, right now. Those are jobs that would be in LA when we have truly a real unemployment rate of closer to 20% when you take in people who are underemployed or who are no longer looking for work, rather than the 11 or 12% that's official. And then lastly, I think we need to make sure that we have some sustainable long-term energy conservation. Because we can spend money in new power plants that are much better and cleaner, but if we can, for half the price, reduce our power bills by making sure our water and our energy conservation go down, I'd like to see a sea of young people who go door to door in this town, helping our businesses and our residents do that.
I would just have to.
Yes.
I'm
I
sorry.
saw two more questions. But go ahead.
Eric's going to be here for a little bit afterward, but 2 things really quickly. One, if you are all interested in seeing a better Los Angeles, I have to ask you all to grab an envelope or see one of the fundraisers and contribute to Eric's campaign and really get behind our future and LA's future in a monetary fashion. As Eric mentioned, it is his birthday, and we baked him a cake. So we all sing happy birthday to Eric. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you.
This is City Hall. This is amazing.
Is that?
That is gorgeous. Thank you guys. And maybe I'll answer two more questions and then we'll, because I know people have their hands up. And just to Rob's point real quick too, and I appreciate folks who are shopping for who they want to vote for or who they might donate to. In the first 3 months of this campaign I announced in September, we had 2,100 donors. The highest by far of any campaign that's launched.
Wow.
And some campaigns have been out there for 9 months. 2,100 donors, which is incredible. From like $5 to $1,000, which is the maximum. And I really do appreciate any little amount that you're able to give because that helps us get the message out. If you have the next question for us. Yes. Excellent. You bet. Fernando asked a question about what my view is of being able to stimulate our economy by tying to our sister cities. We have more sister cities than anywhere in the world. St. Petersburg, I know we have St. Petersburg native somewhere here that I just met. We've got I think right now 28 sister cities. I've been very proud to sign the agreements for San Salvador, for Yerevan, Armenia, and for Beirut, Lebanon. But when you look throughout, these are real opportunities for us because we are one of the great centers, if not the greatest center of global trade in the world. I would like to see us open up, not just necessarily in our sister city locations, but in the main hubs of where we do trade, permanent Los Angeles city offices in places like Shanghai and Mexico City, places where we can have trade, investment, and tourism offices. Everybody wants to come to Los Angeles. You talk to anybody that you're from Hollywood and their eyes light up. They're like, tell me about it. They've seen us in movies for years. It's been their lifelong dream to come here. I also run into people who want to invest but don't know how to. We've got projects right now that are all entitled, ready to go, so people put people back to work at a time when we have 50% of some of our construction workers out of work. If we got that investment from China, from Latin America. And And also for our trade, that's going to be a really important part of our future, to make sure that we keep that strong. So I want to open up these trade investment and tourism offices in maybe 12 or 15 cities around the world. They're not cheap, but the amount of money that we would make off of doing that, it is a global economy. If we don't do it, it's going to be in New Orleans, or it's going to be in Seattle, or it's going to be in San Francisco. Los Angeles is the best place to do it, so that's how I get it done. Like, one more question?
How would you handle what would you do with the gang reduction youth development efforts that Mayor Villalobos started?
It's a great question. I was asked, what would I do with the gang reduction youth development program that the mayor has done? It's been one of the best things that's happened to the city. I think it's been so important for us to finally put a focus on, but I'd like to see them expanded because there's a lot of places that didn't quite hit the threshold. Places like in East Hollywood, my own district, that just missed the threshold. We still have too many young people dying, so we have to, we have the safest city since Dwight Eisenhower's president, but tell that to somebody who still lives in a neighborhood where there aren't those opportunities, where that isn't hope. It was 7 years ago, there was a young woman, 16 years old, in Glassell Park, who was walking with her boyfriend, wasn't even gang affiliated or anything, and somebody pulled up, shot her in the back and killed her. And I always remember her because that time I said, she was a block and a half away from a park, a city park. And I said, why was she there? Why didn't we as a city have a place where she could be with her boyfriend, safe, secure, and sound? And it was out of that summer that we started something called At the Park After Dark, which has morphed into the Summer Nightlights program. And it was funny, the police the first year said, please don't do this. If you keep a park open till midnight, it's just going to attract gangs. It's going to have violence and gunshots and everything. But we kind of pulled them to the program. And the first night, we built this great program up where there was art programs, sports programs, tutoring, and all this stuff. I remember we had the press conference, and this 14-year-old boy came up to me and he said, can I speak? I was like, all the cameras are on, Channel 4, Channel 7. I'm like, hey, any kid that wants to speak in front of us? I said, absolutely. And he said, you know what, I'm a tagger. I don't like tagging people's garage doors, but before tonight, nobody had ever given me a canvas. Tonight, I'm an artist. And look, it's never right to deface property and all that stuff, but we know that this is part of a more complicated picture. And that night, we transformed that life that could have gone from tagging to gang membership to being in the criminal justice system. But instead, he's on a pathway to be an artist and to make something different of his life. And so for me, in the toughest budget times, I was the go-to person for the mayor to make sure that not only we didn't roll things back, we kept expanding that. That's in 32 parks now. Every single park has reduced crime by 40% each summer. And the grid zones, now it's time for us to go out to the places they don't touch yet. Yes, I can't say no to Leah.
No,
That'll be the very last.
Okay.
Leah, our great Diana of the San Fernando
I'm
Valley.
assuming the fact that you're here in the valley
Yes.
is that you want to work with the valley and the city.
Absolutely.
I am very concerned with the division that's being made in the city council members where they're separating the valley.
Yep.
Because I can remember when the valley was trying to secede from the city,
Yes.
which have been a disaster. Now I would like to see people here working to see that the valley doesn't go from 7 council seats to 6 council seats, because I do believe that someone wants to be the mayor of the valley, and I want you as mayor of both the valley and the city.
And you can count on me to be a strong voice for that. The redistricting commission initially sketched the district that goes all the way from my house, so I wouldn't even be in my own district anymore. This is for Tom LaBonge, who opposes this, by the way. It would go from Silver Lake over here to Lake Balboa. He said the only thing those two places have in common are the geese that fly between them. We should keep communities of interest together. And as much as I wanted to complain to Tom LaBonge about my own street, I think I should be the council member in my own district. So I'm kind of the philosophy close to yours, it sounds like, that the more the merrier. If you had 8 council members that represent parts of the valley, guess what? That's a majority. And suddenly you get to be able to make sure that the valley gets its voice heard in everything. But I want to make sure that the valley, especially those people who have made relationships with certain council members and their staffs, can continue that, because it is so jarring to do that and to see gerrymandered districts. We went through secession, and for me, when I spoke about secession, I represented Hollywood, the other area that's trying to secede, and I came from the valley. This has always been one city. The heart of the city, to me, has been the valley. There's no way we can govern without it, and it is what spawned me. It is what cultivated who I am today. And to make sure that that stays at the front and center for our next mayor, you can count on me to be a great Valley representative, but also for all of Los Angeles.
All right.
Thank you all very much. I'll be sticking around, so thank you for the birthday singing. It was lovely. Really appreciate it. Thanks.